The saga of Stagehand All-Star Wrestling all began with two stagehands with bigger dreams than budgets. Robert Hooker, a towering brawler whose fists spoke louder than his words, and Antonio El Enzo Chirito, a wiry loudmouth with a penchant for flair, were just two humble production freelancers. They roamed the hinterland, setting up stages, running cables, and debating whether gaff tape or Marley tape was superior. But deep down, they craved something more. After years of carrying gear and dodging union politics, they had a eureka moment while watching late-night reruns of old wrestling tapes in a dingy motel room. What if we created a wrestling federation for stagehands? A place where production people could settle their beefs in the ring instead of at the loading dock. Thus, Stagehand All-Star Wrestling, SAW, was born. Pro Wrestling for Production, by Production. The birth of SAW. The first event was held in Robert's backyard, with string lights stolen from a wedding gig and a ring fashioned from surplus lumber and elastic ratchet straps. What started as a ragtag group of stagehands quickly grew into a phenomenon. Local unions loved it. Grizzled roadies, security guards, spotlight operators, and even union reps donned personas and joined the fray. Robert and Enzo were the inaugural tag team champions, collectively known as Hooker Colejo, the Backline Bruisers. Their matches were brutal and hilarious, often featuring their valets, Carmen and Vanessa, two sassy, no-nonsense women who made up the women's tag team champions and weren't above sneaking brass knuckles into a match. SAW's top title, the SAW Championship, was claimed by none other than the regional vice president of the union himself, known in the ring as the Foreman. Meanwhile, the rising star of the company, a dual-wielding stagehand wrestler named Brutus Ambidextrous, dominated as the SAW television champion. Brutus's gimmick involved flipping lighting rigs mid-match to blind opponents, a crowd favorite. The rise of a backyard empire SAW became an underground hit. Every match was a love letter to production life. Rivalries revolved around things like stolen union cards, arguments over shift hours, and who broke the $12,000 lighting console. Match names were just as ridiculous. Ladder match, the fight for the follow spot. Tables, lifts, and chairs, the cable snake death match. The wrestlers weren't just fighting, they were also the staff. Enzo wrote the storylines between gig calls, Robert handled security when fans got rowdy, and everyone pitched in to build and tear down the ring. Carmen doubled as the ticket taker, Vanessa ran concessions, and Brutus still worked his day job as a stage rigger. Despite the chaos, SAW grew into New England's most beloved independent wrestling promotion. Venues upgraded from backyards to VFW halls and union meeting rooms. Crowds were packed with stagehands, fans, and curious locals who had never seen a wrestling match where someone took a suplex onto a pile of unused sandbags. The glory days at its peak, SAW had sponsorships, local TV deals, and a roaring fan base. The merch table sold out of Pro Wrestling for Production t-shirts every night, and their chant, "Load in, load out," echoed at every show. One unforgettable moment came during the rigging rumble, when Brutus Ambidextrous pulled off a 20-foot dive from a suspended truss, narrowly avoiding a lawsuit by a stunned insurance adjuster in the audience. The Bruisers retained their titles that night, thanks to Carmen smashing a clipboard over their opponents' heads. The beginning of the end. But as with all great stories, SAW's glory couldn't last forever. Success brought scrutiny. OSHA inspectors started showing up unannounced. Rival promotions accused them of poaching talent, even though SAW wrestlers were just freelancers moonlighting as wrestlers. And then there was the infamous pyro incident, where poorly timed pyro cue lit a catering table on fire during a championship match, forcing everyone to evacuate. The Bruiser and Enzo tried to hold it together, but the stress mounted. Enzo wanted to take SAW national, while Robert believed they should keep it local and focus on the craft. Tensions boiled over during live taping when the two clashed in a backstage argument about union dues. Fittingly, They settled it in the ring with a lights-out street fight that ended in a double countout, leading to the inaugural tag team champions vacating the titles. The Legacy Continues Saw officially closed its doors after the final event, Curtain Call The Last Loadout, which drew the largest crowd in its history. Fans wept as the Bruisers gave a heartfelt farewell speech, thanking the stagehand community for making their wild dream a reality. Robert returned to freelancing, content to tell war stories at the local union hall, while Enzo started a podcast called Culejo Confidential. Carmen and Vanessa became fitness influencers, marketing a line of wrestling-inspired workout gear. Saw may have ended, but its legacy lives on. For a few shining years, stagehands weren't just the people behind the scenes, they were the stars of the show. And somewhere in a dusty old union hall, there's a battered championship belt engraved with the words, "For production, by production, load in, load out."